As far as the eye can see, this area is covered with thousands of oysters. It is a hidden paradise that only appears for a short time. Today we will hunt for treasure attached to thousands of tree trunks along the river mouth. However, there is a major challenge that must be faced. We only have about 1 to 2 hours. The location where I'm standing will be flooded with several meters of water when the tide comes in. We are racing against time before the sea water rises and submerges this entire area. Hello everyone. At first glance, this terrain appears dry, solid, and safe to traverse. However, don't be fooled. This area is full of trap points. This area is full of dangerous spots. You must be extra careful when you're at a river mouth like this. Never run carelessly, even if the water looks shallow. The mud here can reach the depth of an adult's thigh and suddenly trap you, or even deeper. If that happens, don't panic, as panic will only cause you to be sucked in deeper. The key is to remain calm. The way I often deal with it is by crawling. Imagine, at high tide, this area has very strong and deep currents. But at low tide, all that remains are dangerous mud traps. That's why I have to remain vigilant even though I know this location well. When hunting for oysters like this, it is highly recommended to always wear appropriate shoes or footwear. This is because oyster shells are as sharp as razor blades. Even a slight cut on the foot can result in a fatal injury. Earlier, I also got scratched on several parts of my hand, and it stung quite a bit. Look, friends. This entire area is covered with oysters. I was so confused about which one to choose. However, this is actually not that much. There are oysters that are much larger in size in the middle of the river mouth, which is very deep. Because this peripheral area is often visited by people for consumption, the average large oysters here have already been taken. Although the size tends to be small, the catch is still quite satisfying. It is not difficult to find many oysters in this location. In this area alone, there are thousands of oysters attached to tree trunks. We can only harvest these oysters when the tide is low. When the tide is high, it is impossible because all the oysters will be submerged in water. But even though there are thousands of oysters in this area, we only take the large ones because the small ones contain very little meat. There are so many oysters here, take a look. There is a lot in one piece of wood. There may be thousands.
Whoa!
When handling wood filled with oyster shells, you must be very careful and gentle. These shells are as sharp as razors. If they come into contact with your hands when wet, they can be very dangerous because they are as sharp as razors. It turns out that the oyster meat attached to these logs is very thick. We should take this wood to the edge, but it is very heavy and there is a risk of getting stuck in deep mud on the way. It is better to harvest it here. Although these oyster shells are the same size, some have much thicker meat than others. Experience and skill are essential when harvesting them. It turns out there are many big things ahead of me. This must be taken care of immediately. It should be noted that estuary oysters have characteristics that are very different from sea oysters. Estuary oysters tend to have a distinctive muddy aroma and a thinner texture. However, their taste is just as delicious as sea oysters. Out of curiosity, I wanted to try tasting it raw. I wonder what it tastes like. However, I strongly advise against consuming estuary oysters raw. In my opinion, they taste very fishy and are very different from fresher sea oysters. While I can eat sea oysters in large quantities, even a small amount of estuary oysters makes me feel nauseous. Therefore, these oysters must be cooked first. In fact, the closer we get to the center of the estuary, the larger the oysters can be because the area is rarely visited by people. However, keep in mind that the mud in the central area is much more unstable and deeper, so the risk of getting stuck is very high. Ideally, we should use a boat to safely harvest oysters in that area. In this area, I found oysters of a very different size compared to those on the edge earlier. From just one tree, we can already get quite abundant results. This is our catch for today, but the hunt must stop because the seawater is slowly rising and will soon fill this area. First of all, thank you so much for sticking with me this far. Since this is the first video on this channel, I'd like to take a moment so we can get to know each other better before we start cooking. I've actually done some wild adventures and crazy experiments before this. I've cooked in the heart of a dark cave and crawled through dense forests just to find a story. From hunting for food in the wild to finding natural soap and shampoo straight from the earth, I've done it all. I have spent time exploring hidden waterfalls, traversing extreme trails, and pushing my limits in places most people wouldn't dare to go. Honestly, sometimes the sweat, exhaustion, and risks I take don't always feel worth it when viewed in terms of numbers or audience size. There are days when the journey feels very difficult and the results are small. But I do this because I do it wholeheartedly. I did it because I wanted to show the world the pure, untouched beauty of my homeland, places that might be forgotten if no one captured them. The greatest reward for me is not fame. Rather, it is the hope that through these videos, I can bring a piece of this beautiful wild world to your screen, wherever you are. Even if only one person finds inspiration or peace in this journey, then every drop of sweat feels incredibly worthwhile. Thank you for being that person today. Now, let's bring this dish to life. For the cooking process itself, I don't want it to be too complicated. I don't use a variety of spices. Just boil the oysters in enough water. Then add a little salt. We just wait until the shells open by themselves. When the shells are open, it means that the oysters are perfectly cooked. The oysters are ready to be enjoyed. The most delicious sensation is when you eat them while they are still warm. In the midst of a wet, tired body, buffeted by the estuary wind, enjoying boiled oysters like this gives an extraordinary feeling. Although they are small in size, they are very delicious. Their natural savory flavor comes through with just the right amount of saltiness, as if the flavors of the sea and the muddy estuary blend together into a perfect harmony of taste. Thank you very much for watching this video to the end. Your support means a lot to me. See you on the next adventure.